What is up, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome to the Multiverse Infinitum podcast, where we are just doing an episode on the porch, big chillin'. Today, we're going to be talking about some adaptations and some different options, right? The things we want to see adapted. So, first, right off the rip, what were some things that we were talking about beforehand, before the pod, that we were excited to see maybe adapted?
I think we brought up like Dune a little bit and like some
Well, Dune's already been
crossover there.
adapted.
Dune's already been adapted.
Yeah, into movies and a mini series, Children of Dune, in sci-fi in the early 2000s with John McAvoy. But one thing that I wanted to see in terms of TV series was um, Harry Potter, right? Maybe seeing some, maybe seeing some more of that world, like Fantastic Beasts, Where to Find Them. I like those movies, but maybe doing like a series of the house games or some Quidditch tournaments where we could follow some different characters. I think Wednesday, the TV show on Netflix that follows the Adams family, Wednesday Adams, um, really got me thinking more about the potential that they have with those schools and the competitions and I don't want to say rituals, but the clubs and stuff like that. The customs and how much world building really is there, given how much that J.K. Rowling put into that world and research.
Yeah. Or one of the things I've always wondered about would be like, what would wizards look like on another continent? Like
Yeah,
there can't be
in the books
like
it
I
kind of
know.
brings it up.
Say what? It
In the
does
books
bring
it
it up.
does, yeah.
All right. Well, we could totally do a spin-off or like something that was in the same world but in a different part of it.
Yeah,
It's like
magic
this is the
school in
wizard.
Mexico.
Yeah, this is the wizarding world someplace else, and that could be really cool. Like run things different here than we
Yeah,
do at Hogwarts, and then you could have some like characters from Hogwarts, like so you have like that little home base character to remind you what world you're in, and then you're like, but you're not there, you're not at Hogwarts anymore. It's different now.
yeah, and there's a professor that you're like, oh, remember Professor McGonagall or
Yeah,
something. It's like, I'm just here for 2 weeks.
and
That
then
would
they
be
get
super
stuck
cool.
there forever, and they're like, well, this is your quest now, and they get caught up in stuff that's going on there.
Yeah, I think that'd be
That'd be
fascinating.
cool.
So,
Oh, since we're bringing up spin-offs, I was thinking a little bit about it, and I realized that one of my favorite TV shows, Slayers, it's an anime, and it has some of the best lore in it as well, too. Especially in like the world building and the like an endless clash between gods and monsters, which I've seen played out a little bit in other shows, but not quite to the same like it's not quite to its same potential as it really did got debuted in Slayers. And so since we're talking about spin-offs, I think that's a really good one too. Is like this idea that like there's kind of like this pantheon of gods and a whole bunch of things going on, and we're kind of like just little creatures living in a big world, and then getting caught up in that and having to kind of fight for your existence. And then like also the piece of it that I really appreciated in Slayers that I want to see more played out in is that like in Slayers the gods and monsters had been like at war in every reality forever, and it sometimes the monsters win, sometimes the gods win, sometimes it's like this and sometimes it's like that, but both sides, like the two like main gods and monsters, like the big ones, were sick of it. They're like, we just want to die, dude. We're so tired of fighting each other. We just want to die, and we know we made everything, and you guys like love us, want to keep going, but we just want to die.
dang.
Yeah, and that was like a big conflict in it. I'd love to see a little bit more of that played out, and like like human ideals, things that we see is really important. Like, oh, obviously we have to continue, and then the gods who are just like, why? A little bit more challenging about like that. Like,
Mm,
why would you don't need to continue, and then like having some like really thought out arguments about that.
yeah, that is fascinating, and I think it also brings up a really good point too. Of while we're on adaptations, how do you feel about some of the anime being adapted as live action? I feel like they've been
Mm.
hit or miss, but there's some good ones.
I'm not a fan of it, unfortunately. Even the
Any
ones that are like really critically acclaimed, like
One Piece?
One Piece, yeah, I'm still not a fan of it. I just don't think it has the same managed like theater of the mind kind of aspect to it, where you can see things in a certain way, and especially the cartoonish expressions and characteristics and jokes that when you work really well, when you can animate a character and like have their head turn completely in a circle, or like give them impossible features, and it kind of creates more of immersion and just plays better in that reality,
But
like
would
kind of a
you
more imaginary one than it does in live action.
but would you argue there's like strengths and weaknesses to both? Because one thing that I've noticed, like going back and reading Harry Potter novels, is a lot of the dialogue I think is more emotionally punchy because we know the inner thoughts of the characters, but they don't do that in the movies. So a lot of things that they say about the movies too is some of the relationships feel kind of flat. But in the books, you're like they're way more together in the books. It's like because you know more about what they feel in the books, in particular Harry, and when it's written from that kind of perspective. So, do you think that exactly what you said with the animated genre, there's certain strengths to the cinematic form where I think, especially something that anime is known for is the battle scenes, right? And like epic battles. I think something that is done well, if honoring the source material, is live action can do anime battles in a more scalable way because of perception and proportion is so flexible on the page and on the panel
Yeah,
versus with the lens. You have to play a lot
that's
with
true.
perspective
Yeah, I can totally
and
see that.
cinematography. Which, speaking of, Furiosa's coming up soon. But one of my favorite, what's up? Who's ever in the chat? Um, my favorite shot film previous is Mad Max Fury Road. And there's just so many shots in there where I'm like, dang, that looks like a comic. But then I'm like, if I was reading the comic though, I wouldn't have that same feeling that I have right now because it's in motion and there's the soundtrack to it and it's on the big screen. So there's just certain like aspects that I think you can't get outside of the cinematic medium, strengths and weaknesses.
I think you're right, and I think that I really appreciate those parts of anime, and maybe I think in order to adapt it, in live action, you kind of have to abandon a few of them because it inherently gets taken in a different way, and it's more serious. But maybe I'm really isolated in that opinion because the new One Piece is doing amazing. So
What up, Mr. Buzz? We're just out here talking about adaptations. Speaking of, message me. I need to get part of your video for a skit that we're doing. So that's what happens when you're live, ladies. All right. Um, I got the chat pulled up here, but sounds good. Appreciate the support, anyways. Um, I think also something that maybe hasn't gotten it to do, and I think that's primarily due to his age and certain contracts he has with Fast and Furious. But I think the world was done dirty. And Buzz, you know what the hell I'm talking about because this is a super OG. But it's Riddick,
Riddick,
Chronicles of Riddick. Yeah, I think because of Vin Diesel and because of what he's doing the Fast and Furious, they didn't make enough of that in that world, and it was very Firefly esque, very like, uh, you know, world hopping and like kind of futuristic, but also kind of rustic and kind of like, oh, the ship might break down at any moment, kind of thing. And Wild West elements for sure, environmental elements for sure. But the first movie is called Pitch Black, and hi Kitty, and the best character in that movie is Riddick. So then they made all the other movies about that character. But I think they really should have stuck with the world and had more of the other characters and more about the Necromongers, maybe a prequel because those are super cool villains. So Chronicles of Riddick, I think would be cool. But I
all
mean,
right,
even speaking of
yeah.
Firefly, do you think that they should have got a second season?
Oh yeah, Firefly had a great premise. They had a lot going on. They had really interesting play with I don't know if anyone in the audience knows like River, and Simon, who were like these two renegades on run from the government and kind of stowing away from a really wealthy family, and they had like an awesome backstory about what was going on there. All these kind of like experiments from the government to try to make it a human weapon, and like a ton of like really good bad or really badass villains. And then like the characters were complicated, they worked really well. They created the theme of like space cowboys. So like cowboys in space, kind of like just moving illegal cargo to get by. They were
Which-
smugglers, so they were like kind of good guys, kind of bad guys. Mostly good guys. They were good guys doing bad things,
Well, for an
but they had like morals and stuff. You know?
right.
Yeah.
Well, there's choices too to make, which for an RPG really sounds, I think, super rich. So I think we're kind of pigeonholing ourselves too to talking about entertainment and only TVs, movies, and stuff. What do you think about a Firefly video game?
I think it's been done, but I don't know. That'd be good.
Really?
Yeah.
I don't think it has been done.
Really. I'm
'Cause-
sure there'd be a lot of cool adventures, especially in the whole. Especially if you made it like free world.
Yeah.
Like if you just put it in
Go to
the
different
there's
planets.
a bunch of different planets and or like even like a mission line and detached it from the original Firefly crew and just did it in that world. I think that would be really cool.
Dude, you could get Nathan Fillion to still voice it. He's still in the
Yeah, I have a cameo.
That's our. This whole pod just became a Firefly video game pitch. I feel like that'd be super fire.
Where's Bethesda? We'll get them to do it.
I don't know if I trust them.
Don't
This is
like
coming from a
Bethesda?
long-time Bethesda fan.
All right, fair enough.
I
fair
just
enough.
don't think it's a fit for them. After seeing Starfield,
Well, then who's their game company?
they would do it.
Yeah,
Naughty Dog.
Naughty
They did
Dog.
Uncharted and Last of Us.
Nice.
I think they would take it serious enough, but also do the action sequences where you're like fucking in it and you're racing and maybe some shit battles that would be super fun.
All right.
Or I feel like maybe Respawn could do good too because they also did the Jedi games. So keeping it kind of grounded in sci-fi, not super like high sci-fi and crazy like, but like more gritty. I like that.
Nice.
So yeah, what other things do you think would be kind of sick video games? Just since we're on that track, if you think that would be a good way to go with it, I think
More
Dune-
open world games.
Dune's coming out with an open world survival game.
Yeah?
on Arrakis, where you try to survive in the planet,
That sounds really
on the
fun.
desert planet.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd be super into that too. It's kind of hard, right? Because a lot of these have been adapted and some of them poorly. Like I would say, damn, we just need at least one good Fantastic Four movie. Like, why can't we adapt one of the most beloved families in comics to at least one movie? Oh shit, I should have been reading the chat. My bad, brother. Yeah, right. Fucking Riddick is the shit. Naughty Dog for sure. Hell yeah. Okay. Basically, sorry, keep it rolling because I got a text real quick.
All right. On a
This is
total
live.
side note,
What else would you want to see?
Well, I want to see a comic villain or villain slash anti-hero. I don't know. He wouldn't really be any of them because he'd be the embodiment of hunger. So like Darkseid is the embodiment of domination. As long as there's something in the universe dominating something else, he can exist. As long as there's something in the universe that is hungry, this can exist. And it's like the most primal, inherent aspect of every living organism that needs to eat to fuel itself.
What's the name?
Lupavourer.
Fire.
Just, yeah, off the cusp.
Okay. Well, that sounds pretty cool. Do you think that would fit best in like a comic book world or in like
Oh, comics for sure.
yeah.
Yeah. Oh, that's the only place where the power scaling.
Well, and
Crazy enough. Anime, I guess. Yeah, it could be an anime.
that's totally some anime shit.
That's true.
But I agree that it's more of a comic book concept.
Yeah. I got it from comic books, like from Darkseid specifically. The idea that like an emotion or like Superman too,
Yeah.
being hope, you
Yeah.
know, just that like there's like these super beings that embody certain emotions that are kind of like innate in the world.
Yeah.
I was like, what's more innate than hunger? It's not even like as obscure. Like if you killed all the humans, like there might be some other animals that have hope.
Yeah,
but
you
not,
don't even need
yeah,
sentience for hunger.
for reals. Like I'm good on bacteria.
Yeah.
They're still hungry
Yeah.
motherfuckers.
He's like,
Yeah.
that's super cool. And maybe that's also what makes him less like or her less like good or evil and just like is.
Yeah, exactly. And also doesn't have an agenda. Like when they show up, like the villains and good guys would all be fighting, and then they show up and they're like, "What? What are you?" And they just start eating them. And I'd be like, "Ah!"
Holy crap.
Well, what would you do? You just gotta make it go away? I don't know.
That'd be insane, bro. Hell yeah. Appreciate that video, Buzz. We'll be uploading that on Bond Productions. Go check it out. We'll have it linked in the description. But what about some like survival horror things? Because Five Nights at Freddy's, you're like, how the hell do they adapt that, right? And then the movie is actually pretty fucking good. I liked it a lot.
Tell me a little bit about it.
A older brother is camping with his family, and his little brother gets kidnapped, and he has nightmares about it like every night, and he like fucks him up, and he's like, oh. And then he has a little sister once he's like older, and he's like, I'm gonna protect her, I don't want anything to happen to her. And he gets a security job at Funtime Playhouse, whatever the hell it's called, in the end, where you're like, damn, that shit was not in the game.
Nice.
But it still makes perfect sense within the context of the movie. So I'm thinking in the vein of that, have you ever heard of Amnesia?
Amnesia? No.
It's like a really creepy first-person survival horror game, and in the vein of Outlast, really. But you're in this castle and you just wake up and you gotta like learn shit. But then as you like get further, you like start losing your mind, and then you just see these like creepy things with like long ass mouths. They're like, oh, they just fucking follow you. And I feel like a Blair Witch style found footage camera of the start of the movie is you wake up, and then you're like going around and you're like doing shit, and then you're peeking, you're like, what the fuck is that? And it's like this creepy ass thing, and a lot of it is like, am I seeing things or is that real? And then finally like the monsters come and fucking, I think it'd be cool. Or shit, even Outlast, now that we're talking about first person survival horror games.
I think that it would be a really good psycho thriller game on the like idea of someone that's schizophrenic, trying to figure out if they're like things that are happening around them are real or not. You have to figure out how to like figure out what's real, and then at the end of the game, it's like, what is real? So things start to like get mixed up, and like the whole, I don't know. There's got to be some sort of premise.
For sure, I agree with that. I think a movie that did that really well is American Psycho, because the whole time you go through his perspective, he's doing all the shit, and at the end he's calling his lawyer and he's like, oh, I killed him, and he's like, dude, no you didn't, and there's no evidence. Like it was all in his head the whole time.
Yeah.
Or Shutter Island's another one like that, where you're going with the detective, and then at the end you're like, fuck, was it real, was it made up?
And so like, yeah.
Do you think Shutter Island as a video game, since we're on the adaptation train, would be kind of fire?
It would be kind of fire, but I think a psychedelic version would be kind of more a badass adaptation.
Like maybe MK Ultra kind of deal?
Yeah, kind of.
Like Jim Morrison, MK Ultra?
Yeah, or like I'm sure you've played Far Cry, and like there's the psychedelic scenes in Far Cry. Maybe not as psychedelic as that, but like kind of adhering to that theme a little bit. Yeah. You could be, but the MK Ultra is kind of a great idea. You could be like an MK Ultra experiment, and like not sure if you're on acid or not, and like be like tripping and walking around the psych ward and be like, how did you get out of your room? And you're like, I got out of my room. And then the person runs up and like
they're like chasing you, and you think it's like gang members, but it's like the hospital guys or whatever.
Or you think the hospital guys are about to get you, and then every time they're like about to get you, they're just like not there, and you're like, what the fuck?
You're hiding behind a corner, and then you turn and you're like,
yeah, and they're just gone.
Dude, that's fucking creepy.
And you're like, were they there? It makes sense. Am I even here? Am I still in my room? You don't know.
We just cut the pot.
You don't know. We just cut the pot.
We just cut the pot, and it's just like one person there. It's like, there's nobody else here.
Yeah,
that'd be creepy. Hell yeah, bro, I'm with it. That sounds fire. Yeah, actually, Riddick had a first-person game, but it was in the prison. So, Doom had a pretty good movie with The Rock in it, and that's a first-person shooter game. And they did like a thing on Mars, like a station on Mars, but there's a portal to hell, so there's demons on Mars and instead of aliens, and it's pretty cool shit. I feel like that's kind of adequate. You rock with that? I mean, there's plenty more adaptations to talk about, but I think we're on a good track. And obviously, leave down in the comments down below what adaptations you'd like to see, either from the film to movies, or from the film to video games, or books and comics, source material to movies and television, let me know down in the comments down below. Honorable mention, the Cosmere, right? The Mistborn series. Some really cool shit with that. And I think Brandon Sanderson's already probably got some deals in the works. So that's why we didn't spend too much time talking about that today. But yeah, click that like button, subscribe. As always, appreciate all of the support on the shorts and the podcast. We're going to keep that going. We got Gareth Bond here. Go follow his channels. And we'll catch you on the next one. Peace.
Hey.